You can draw this in Procreate. During this fun and easy Procreate tutorial, we will use this base shape and turn it into 5 different animals, plus a 6th bonus animal, or well, animal. Not sure if it's an animal, but you'll see later. You can download this base shape through the link in the description, or create your own shape on a canvas that is 2500 pixels by 2500 pixels. I'm excited to start drawing some animals with you, so let's get started. The first thing you need is the base form for all of our animals. You can either download it through the link that I have put in the description, or you can create your own shape, of course. Do make sure that your shape is symmetrical. You can make sure of that by going to the wrench, then go to Canvas, then turn on the drawing guide, then tap Edit Drawing Guide and set it to Symmetry, and then tap Done. And then make sure that when you start drawing that your layer is assisted. You can see assisted underneath your layer name. If it's not turned on, then just tap the layer and turn on Drawing Assist. Then whatever you draw on one side will also show up on the other side. Now let's start creating our first animal. To do that, we are going to use a new layer. First, we'll lower the opacity of this one. Let's set it to 30%, then tap the plus, and then set that new layer to Drawing Assist as well. So tap it and turn on Drawing Assist. Then for the brush, I would like to use the dry ink brush, which you can find under inking. It's a Procreate standard brush. And I like the texture look it has, but of course you can use any brush you like. I have the opacity of the brush set to 100% and the size is set to 15%, and I'm just using black. You can grab black by double tapping at the bottom of your colored circle. But again, just like you can use any brush you like, you can also use any color you like, of course. Now let's zoom in a little bit. And then we'll start by going over the main shape. So we'll follow the outline, make a shape like this, and then here in the center we'll make a diamond shape with a little curve underneath. Then we'll start over here and make a flipper like this, or wing, or whatever it's called for a penguin. And then we'll start on top of the beak and make a curve like this, then loop back, and then finish that shape here. Also make its feet, following that base shape that we have. Maybe tidy this up a little bit. And then for its eyes, let's keep them simple and make these ovals. And then once you have your animal, of course, you can turn off our base layer, our base shape. And there you have your first animal. Let's move on to the next one. So we are back at the point where we just have our main shape. This time I want to add a big eye right here on the outside. You can hold your pen in place if you want a nice smooth curve. Then we'll connect this area and we will create the body again, making a curve like this. Then right here we'll make a slight smile and we'll make a shape on its belly. Using less pressure. You can hold your pen in place again for a nice smooth line. And like I said, I'm using less pressure so my line gets a little bit thinner, more subtle. Then we'll follow this shape again. And we'll add another foot like this. Then we'll add these lines for its toes. Let's add cute little cheeks. Again, using less pressure. And then let's add these pupils. And you can color these in like this. And now our base shape has turned into a cute little toad. Next, we'll create a hamster-like creature. First, again, let's follow the body shape. Then we'll make a big ear. You can hold your pen in place for a nice smooth shape. You can also tap Edit at the top to adjust it a little bit. Then tap the brush to get out of there and make another shape on the inside. Then right here we'll make a tiny little nose and a slight smile. We'll follow these shapes for its feet with tiny little toes. Now let's tidy this area up a little bit. And then we'll create these big eyes. Draw a circle, hold your pen in place. You can tap one finger on the screen to create a perfectly round circle. And then we'll make another one right inside. Hold your pen in place, tap one finger on the screen, and then color that in. Now let's also give him tiny arms like this. And that's how you can turn our base shape into a hamster-like creature. Next, we'll turn it into a sloth. First, let's create a shape for its face. I'm using less pressure so the line will get a little bit thinner. Then let's create a shape for its eye, the area around its eye. Let's give him a tiny little eye, a big nose, and a slight smile. Then we'll make an arm like this. And then we'll curve along its body to the top, but then stop there. I want to add some, hair that's not symmetrical. Then let's follow this shape. And then here we'll make these nails. Then let's turn off Drawing Assist. We'll tap the layer and then tap Drawing Assist to turn it off. And then we can add some hair here. That's not symmetrical. And then of course you can turn the base shape off again and you have a cute little sloth. For our fifth animal, we'll create an owl. I want it to have big eyes. So let's draw these circles, hold your pen in place and tap one finger on the screen. Then add a pupil in the center. And here we'll add a diamond shape with a rounded shape underneath for its beak. And then here we'll make a wing shape. Like this with these curves. And then you can move to the top. And then here on the edge, I like to create these fluffs, like ear fluffs, and then connect the center here. Then we can connect these parts and add its feet. And now let's make a curved shape like this with light pressure going to the center. And then also here at the bottom for its belly. And then just turn off the base shape and you have your owl. But of course the fun doesn't end once you have drawn these animals. Let's also color them. And I'm going to show you different techniques to color your animals, and we'll start with the easiest one. First, let's turn off our drawing guide. You can go to the wrench, then to canvas and turn your drawing guide off. We no longer need it. Now a very easy way to color any line art is by going to your line art layer, that's over here, tap it and then turn on reference. Then you can make a new layer underneath. So first tap here and then tap the plus. Then let's grab a color. I'll use this one. I have these colors available for you through the link in the description if you want to use the same colors. But of course, again, I'll repeat myself, you can use any color you like. But I'll use this blue and I'll drag it onto the body. And then once you're there, you can hold your pen in place and use the slider to adjust the color drop threshold. And move it to the right so it doesn't spill, but it nicely fills all the edges. And then just let go and then grab another color. Let's grab this one, that second color, and I'll use that for that inside. And then I'll grab the third color and use that for the beak. You can also tap continue filling and then just tap in these areas. And well, here we need to adjust the color drop threshold. So slide to the left and then tap again to fill these areas. And then let's check this off. And this is the easiest way to color any line art in Procreate. Next, let's go for something slightly more advanced. Again, we'll go to our line art layer and set it to reference and make a layer underneath. So we'll tap this one and tap the plus. And this time I'd like to grab this color, sixth color in the first row. And I'll use that for the body. And I'll use continue filling to also fill the leg areas. And then make a new layer. Let's tap the plus. And on this layer, we'll use this color. That's the 8 color in the first row, and I'll use that for the belly. And then finally, I'll also make a layer. I'll tap the plus again for the cheeks. Let's grab this color, 10th color in the first row, and drag that into the cheek areas. And then tap the little check mark. Now we'll use a little trick to add texture to our illustration, add more interest to it. Let's start with the body. Let's tap this layer and turn on alpha lock here. Now we can only draw on this color that we already have here. And for our brush, let's go to the chalk brushes, the charcoals, and use the carbon stick. And I will grab a color that is darker than this base color. So let's use this one. That's the 5th color in the first row. Now the opacity of my brush is at 75%, and let's just play around with the size, maybe 15. Let's see. Yeah, that's a nice size. We can go over this lower area and add some shadow area there and some nice chalky texture. And a little bit on the side of this eye. And then we'll do something similar with a lighter color. You can grab this one, for instance, 8 color in the first row. And we can gently go over this top area. And here over the eye and that center area. Very gently adding a little bit of light. Then I'd also like to add some white around the eyes. And I want to use a brush from the Treasure Chest brush pack for that. If you don't already have it, go to freefromflow.com. It's totally free. And you'll get loads of brushes, including the round chalk brush, which I would like to use. And for the color, we'll use this one, 9th color in the first row. The opacity of the brush should be at 100%. And I have the size at 50 or 51. I saw it move. And now let's just create some white, even though this color isn't exactly white, but we'll create some white around the eye. Of course, you could also just draw a circle, hold your pen in place, and then work like that. And you can tap circle here to adjust it. And then tap the brush again and do the same on this side. Hold your pen in place, tap the screen, and then tap circle here at the top to be able to adjust it. Then tap the brush again. I'd also like to add a little highlight to the eye. And to do that, we need to make a layer on top of our line art. So let's tap the plus here. And then with this round chalk brush, let's just create a little dot here on both eyes to add a highlight and to really add to that cuteness. Now let's go back to texturing. I also want to add a little bit of shadow on the underside of its belly here. So we'll go to this layer, layer 4, tap it to turn on alpha lock. And now we need to go back to that other brush we were using. You could just scroll to the top to recent brushes, and there you'll find the carbon stick again. And then for the color, let's use this one. That's the 7th color in the first row. And then let's go over the underside of its belly like this, adding a bit of shadow there as well. And now for a final touch for this illustration style, we can go to our line art layer. Let's tap it and turn off drawing assist so that the symmetry tool is turned off. And then let's tap it again and turn on alpha lock here so we can change the color of our line art. Let's go back to our round chalk brush. And then for our color, let's first start with this pinkish color, that 10th color, and go over the lines around the cheek like this so that you don't really see that line art anymore there. Next, let's grab this color, 5th color in the first row, and let's use that for the mouth, for instance. And here around the eyes, just make sure that you don't go over the pupils. They don't have to be green. And make sure that you don't go over those cheeks. Go down here. And over that belly area. And then for the lower area, I'd like to make the lines a bit darker. So you can grab this color, 4th color in the 1st row. And use that over here so that it's not as dark as it was. And it nicely blends with the colors of the illustration. So this coloring technique was already slightly more advanced using some more features of Procreate. By the way, this week I saw so many amazing results from previous tutorials. I always love browsing through Instagram and scrolling through your results. So don't forget to share yours. If you tag me in the image and not just in the description, then I'll be able to find it. And then perhaps I'll be showing off your work in the next video. But for the next one, we'll take it even a step further. Let's go ahead and color our little hamster guy. First, again, we'll turn on reference on this layer. And I'll make a layer underneath. Let's tap the plus. And for this guy, I want to use this color, 2nd color in the 2nd row. Let's drag it onto its body and use continue filling to also fill the ears. Then we'll make a new layer on top. Let's tap the plus and then let's fill the feet. And let's also fill the ears. We'll use the 4th color in the 2nd row. And we can just continue filling like this. Then let's also make a layer for the eyes. We'll tap the plus. And for the eyes, I'd like to use this color over here. 3rd color in the 2nd row. And we'll color the eyes like this. Now let's also color the line art. Let's go to this layer, tap it and turn on alpha lock. Now an easy way to color the entire line art is by grabbing the color that you want, and that's the 1st color in the 2nd row, then go back to the layer, tap it, and then use fill layer. Now I don't like the eyes being this light, so we can just go over there with our round chalk brush, and then use black again, double tap here, and I will just go over the eyes here, and darken the pupils and slightly darken the top of the eye there. And let's also darken the mouth a little bit. Next, we are going to add lighting effects to our creature, and we'll do that not by using alpha lock on a layer, but this time we are going to make use of clipping mask. We'll tap this layer and then tap the plus. Then we'll tap the new layer and set it to clipping mask. It works a bit the same as alpha lock. Now we will only be able to paint on this shape, but a nice trick we can use now is setting this layer to multiply. We can tap the N here and you'll find all kinds of layer blending modes, and multiply is great when you want to add shadows. So we'll set this to multiply, and for our color, we'll grab this one over here, 5th color in the 2nd row. And for our brush, let's go to the airbrushing brushes. The Procreate standard brushes, and use the medium brush. Now the opacity of the brush is at 100%. Let's set the size to maybe 15. And then go over this lower area with light pressure. And also over this area, lower area of the ear. And to make it a bit softer, you can go to the magic wand and then to Gaussian blur and slide to the right with your pen, and that'll make it softer. This is way too soft, but you could go for, well, let's see, maybe 10%. Then you can go to the layer menu and you have full control over this effect. You can just tap the M and lower the opacity. I'll go for 55%. Now let's make another multiply layer on top. We'll tap the plus and we'll set this new layer to clipping mask as well. And we'll tap the N and scroll up to multiply. And now let's make the brush a little bit smaller. Let's first go for 7% and then add some crisper. Well, we need to go even smaller, maybe 4. Add some crisper shadow right here and underneath the ear here. Now let's go a little bit bigger, 9%, and add more shadow on the underside of its body. I also want a slight shadow underneath the arms and a little bit of shadow here at the top. Let's go over the eyes just slightly. And I want these shadows to be more crisp. So let's grab a more crisp brush. Let's go to the calligraphy brushes and use the script brush. The opacity is at 100%. Let's set the size to 40. And now we can go along that little arm and add a little shadow. And then of course we can lower the opacity again. We can tab the M, slide to the left, and let's go for 50%. And of course we can simply repeat this step for those insides of the ear and for its legs. Let's tap the plus, set that layer to clipping mask, tap the N, scroll up to multiply, and then let's grab that airbrushing brush again, the medium brush, and let's go over this area. Let's make the brush a little bit smaller, 4%. Add a slight shadow over here. And now let's grab the pink of the ear. We'll tap and hold to grab it. And then go over this area of the ear to add a little shadow there. Make a curved line following the shape of the ear. And then finally, let us add some highlights to our creature. Let's make a layer on top of all the others. So we'll tap here and tap the plus, and we'll change the layer blending mode again. We'll tap the N, but this time we'll set it to add, which is great for adding light effects. And we'll still be using that medium brush, that airbrushing brush, and we'll grab the local color. We'll just use that yellow. Let's make the brush a little bit smaller, maybe a small 3%. And let's add some highlights right here on its head. Make it look shiny. Let's add a little highlight on the ear over here as well. We can add tiny highlights on its arms. And I want a thin highlight edge right underneath, a little backlight also on its toes. And you can grab the color of the iris, this brown, and add a little highlight here. Maybe make the brush a little bit bigger. Let's go for 5%. And gently go over there and light that area up. Now finally, we just need a bright highlight on that pupil area. Let's grab our chalk brush again. Let's go all the way to the top to recent brushes, grab the round chalk, and let's grab pure white. You can just double tap here for pure white. And then let's just go to our line art layer and do it on this layer. Let's tap it and first turn off drawing assist because I don't want this to be symmetrical. The highlights need to be on the same side. So we'll make one. Let's make the brush smaller first. Let's go for 25%. So we'll make one over here and one on this side. And as you might have noticed, you have a lot of control over your shadows and your highlights using this technique, but it does take more layers. For the next one, let's go for an entirely different style. Let's create new line art on top of our drawing. So let's lower the opacity of this layer. Let's set it to 30% or 31, whatever, around 30. Then tap the plus. And then for our color, we are going to use this one over here. First one in the third row. And then for the brush, I'd like to use one of the inking brushes. I'd like to use the Studio Pen. The opacity is set to 100% and the size, let's set that to 20. And for this line art, I'd like to use a gaps. So let's start here, for instance, and make a line and then stop and then continue again. But just leave a gap every once in a while. I'll rotate my canvas to make it easier. So here I'll stop, make another line, stop again. So our line art will have little gaps. Maybe some dashes. And I'll leave a gap for the toes here. So we can make toes like this. And over here as well. Little dashes. Nice curve, stop, and continue. So every time you have a little gap. Then we have the toes again. And over here. Then the nose, you can just go over and fill it. And then for these eye areas, we'll use those gaps again. And then finally for this shape around its head, one more line. There, then we can turn off our line art layer. And then we need to color this. Let's do that on a layer underneath. Let's tap the plus. Make sure that no other line is set to reference. And then let's start with this color, fourth color in the third row. And we are going to use it for the entire body. So let's just follow the outline. Let's create a shape like this. And we can set this line art to reference because we have all of those gaps. The paint would spill out. So we need to make a separate, nice and clean shape that we can fill. So now we have a closed shape and we can drag in the color. Now let's make a layer on top. Let's tap the plus. Then we'll go for this third color in the third row. And let's use that for that face shape. Just follow the outline. Make a shape without gaps. And then drag in the color. And then finally for the eyes, we'll make another layer, tap the plus. Grab the second color in the third row and then follow these shapes. Drag in the color for the other one. And now we have colored it in kind of a kawaii illustration style. All right, for our final coloring technique, I want to get rid of the outlines almost entirely. But first, let's make some layers with the base colors. So we'll go to our line art layer again and set that to reference. Then make a layer underneath. Let's tap the plus. And then let's start with the base color for the entire body. I want to use this one for that, the 8th color in the second row. Let's drop it in. And let's make sure it doesn't spill all over. Then use continue filling, drop it here as well. Then let's make a new layer on top. We'll tap the plus and then we'll grab this color and let's drop it in. And let's also put the legs on this layer. For the legs, I'd like to use this color, 5th color in the 3rd row. Drop it in. Use continue filling like that. And then let's make another layer on top. We'll tap the plus. And for that one, we are going to fill it with white for the eyes. Let's double tap here. You won't be able to see it, but we will need this later. So let's drop that in. Then let's tap the plus for a layer for the beak. For the beak, I'd like to use this color again. 8 color in the second row. Let's drop that in like this. Now we need to replace our line art. Let's first go to the line art layer and lower the opacity by tapping the N. And let's set it to, well, for instance, 50%. Then let's go back to this layer. And I want to grab another brush. I want to grab a brush from the treasure chest brush pack again. I want to use the round chalk pencil, but you can use any brush you prefer. I want a nice textured outer edge, and this brush will give me that. And the opacity of the brush is at 100%, and I have the size at 50. And then let's just go along the outer edges. Go over that area where you see the outline, and of course it looks dark now, but once you get rid of that outline, you see that it's the same color as our base color. Just make sure that you really nicely fill it and create a nice textured outer edge, and we'll go all around our illustration. You can make these nice pointy fluffs here. So go all around like this. And of course you can turn the line art layer off to check it out and see if there are any parts that aren't tidy yet. So you can just go over there and fix those. And also when we turn that layer back on, I want to add a darker line around this edge of the wing so that it stands out more. So let's grab a darker color. Let's grab this one. That's the 6th color in the second row. And then we'll just go over there. Let's lower the opacity of the line art layer a bit more to like 20% or 21. And then we can go along this edge and add a darker line for that edge. And we can also go along these parts a bit. And then just do the same over here. Let me rotate this. I find it easier to make this movement, but that might be different for you. So we'll follow that curve. Add some here. And then we are going to do the same for this layer, for instance. We can turn up the opacity a bit more to whatever you prefer. I'll go for 40 now. So on this layer, again, with the same brush, you can grab or tap and hold and grab that color. And then we'll go along this edge. Just go around until it's all neat like this. And of course we'll do the same for its legs. We can tap and hold, grab that color, go around that edge so that we no longer need that line art. And on this side, let's follow the edge, clean this up a little bit. And now we just need to do this for the eyes. So let's go to the eye layer, zoom in, tap and hold to grab the color. And let's actually lower the opacity of this line art a bit more to 15 or 14%. And you won't be able to see it very well since our background is also white. But let's just go over here, clean that up. create a nice textured edge. And we'll do it for this eye as well. And finally, we need to do the beak. Let's go to this layer. And again, we need to grab that local color. And actually, let's also grab a darker color later to create a better outline for that lower part of the beak. And I was just thinking that I have created like hundreds of free tutorials here on YouTube. And the only reason I can do that, and I'm super grateful for that, is because of my patrons at Patreon. And in case you don't already, or in case you're not familiar with Patreon, they are like the great supporters of this channel, enabling me to create these videos. And at Patreon, you also get access to hundreds of more tutorials for Procreate. And you'll also be able to learn how to create realistic animals, for instance. So if you don't already know Patreon, then go check that out. You might want to join. If not, then no hard feelings, of course. You can just continue watching these weekly free videos, all made possible by those patrons. Now let's grab a darker color here for that little outline. Let's grab this color, 6th color in the 2nd row. And let's go along this outline a bit. Around the beak and also here. So that there's a little like shadow underneath. And it separates the two parts of the beak. Darken this a bit. It's also a nice shading brush, this actually. All right, I think we have nice clean lines now. Like I said, you can turn off the line art layer to see if that's true. Now, I am noticing that, of course, we do need the pupils for our eyes. So let's put those on a layer on top of the eyeball layers. Let's tap the plus, turn that line art layer back on. And then for our color, let's use this one. That's the 7th color in the 2nd row. And for the brush, let's grab that. Where is it? Let's go back to our recent brushes here at the top. Let's grab the round chalk brush again. And then let's create a pupil on each side. And let's also add a highlight right away. Let's just grab white, double tap here. Let's make the brush smaller, maybe 4%. And add a tiny little highlight in each of these pupils. Now we're ready to turn off our line art layer. We have everything we need. And now we can start shading. I'd like to add a bunch of feathers to its belly. So let's go to layer 4 here. And let's just stay safe. Let's turn on alpha lock. And for our brush, I'd like to use the round chalk pencil again. And for the color, let's use this one. 8th color in the 2nd row. And I want to add these feathers to the lower part. And I'll just make these curved shapes like, well, almost like fish scales. Shapes like this towards its beak. Then I'll make a little gap and then move towards the right. Then we'll go back to the left and make another one of these shapes right in between the ones on the top. And then we'll go all the way to the right. And continue making rows like this until it looks something like this. And then you can start shading a bit more, emphasizing some parts, making the bottom parts a bit darker, for instance. We're adding some shadow in between. We can also add some shadow right underneath its beak here. can add as much detail as you like with this illustration style. I want to keep it a bit loose and nicely textured with these chalky textures. I'll just go over all of these feathers. We can also introduce some extra color like this one, 5th color in the 3rd row. You can color some of these feathers. I'm using the side of my pen a bit so that we get a broad stroke, nicely textured and soft. And this brings some nice color variety. We can also use the carbon stick and a darker color. Let's use this one, 7th color in the 2nd row, and let's use that to darken the lower area a bit, add some shading there. A little bit around the wings. That's a bit too much perhaps. Let's also add some lighter color. Let's use this one but go a little bit lighter. And you can just do that by going to the top here, but keeping it a bit saturated. So also go a little bit to the right. You'll have a nice lighter, still saturated color like that. Now let's go over here, over this top area, adding a little bit of light. And then let's grab our round chalk brush. And let's also add these light touches to some of these leaves. Not leaves, why am I calling them leaves? The feathers. Let's make the brush slightly bigger, 10%. Just add some light on some of the tops of these feathers. And now let's grab a dark color. Let's see, this color, the 7th color in the 2nd row, and let's use that right underneath the eyes. Let's actually go a little bit lighter. Let's just grab this color, tap and hold it. Add a bit of a dark curve underneath the eye. And also at the top, it'll place these eyes a bit more like inside of their sockets. Now let's add some shading to the eyeball. Let's go to the eyeball layer, tap it, and turn on alpha lock. And then for the color, we'll grab this one, 8th color in the 3rd row. And we'll use the carbon stick again. And then let's go over the underside a bit. And over here as well. Adding some shading to the eye. Then let's go back to this layer because we also need some shading on its feet. Let's use this color for that. That's the 6th color in the 3rd row. And let's go over top area. Oh, I'm also going over the belly. That's silly. Let's grab the round chalk brush for a bit more control and add some shadow here right underneath its belly. Then for the body, let's go to this layer. Let's tap it and turn on alpha lock. And then let's use the carbon stick and this color. That's the 7th color again in the 2nd row. Let's go over these wings and over its belly and this underside. Just some shading there. Let's make the brush a little bit smaller, 5%, and let's just add some dabs here just for some texture. And let's also use that darker color, that 6th color in the 2nd row. for extra shadow underneath the wings here, extra little dabs, and a dark edge just underneath its belly. Then let's switch to the round chalk pencil and that slightly lighter color, that 7th color in the 2nd row, and we can use that to add some like feathery texture, just some lines like this over here as well. Give that suggestion of feathers, and let's do that here as well for his like little ear fluffs. Then we also need a slight touch of light. Let's grab this color, 9th color in the 2nd row, and let's use the carbon stick again. And let's add some light at the top, for instance, top of its head, and along the side, along its wing, and a little bit over here. And then finally, for a nice extra touch, I'd like to introduce a secondary light, a nice blue backlight. And the blue we'll use is this one, 7th color in the 3rd row. And to stay safe, you can use a clipping mask. In this case, you can tap the plus for a new layer, set that new layer to clipping mask, because that way it'll be easier to either lower the opacity or erase parts of this without getting rid of all the texture that you've already created. Now let's grab the round chalk brush and let's just go along the edge of the owl and add that backlight. Let's actually also go over this lower part. And let's grab the round chalk pencil. It gives a bit more control. So we can also add a little bit of light on these feathers here. And also on this wing. So we're placing this light on all the right sides that we see, and a little bit on the underside, imagining that that light is coming from here. Next, we can also use it on this layer. Let's make a new layer on top, tapping the plus, setting it to clipping mask for full control. And now we can add it to this leg or foot. And you can also add it a bit to these feathers, making some of these feathers on its belly stand out. Then finally, let's also do it for the eyes and for its beak. Let's put these together on one layer. It'll save some layer space. We'll pinch these together and tap the plus, set this layer to clipping mask. And now we can first go along the eyeball and this one as well. Again, focusing on the lower and right area. And then for the beak, this one and on the lower one. And of course, you can use each of these coloring techniques on all of the other animals as well. So I challenge you to mix and match and to share your results, of course. But I also promised you one surprise animal or creature. So here we go one more time. Perhaps our base shape already reminded you of something, but let's go. First, we'll make a curve like this. Let's see if you recognize it. Make a curve like this, like a stretched S. We'll make a line over here in the center, triangle shape here, and an oval shape over here. Then a pupil here. I'm not sure, do you recognize it yet? Then let's follow the body shape. Top of its head. Tidy this up, and then its feet. And there you have a little Goomba. And then of course you can color it in any way you like. I hope you've enjoyed creating these 5 animals, well actually 6. Be sure to share your work. Maybe you have found some other animals inside the base shape. I would love to see those. And then I'm hoping to see you next time for the next tutorial.